Have any of you ever done an escape room? An escape room, this is an activity where you and a group of friends are placed in a room and you got to escape. And the only way to escape is that you have to solve a series of puzzles that lead to a key that will help you unlock the door. And in with an escape room, they typically have some theme that goes along with it. And some of the escape rooms that I've done is called Diamond Heist, and that you're the diamond thieves trying to sneak into a museum where there's this rare diamond, and you gotta go in, get the diamond, and then get out within 60 minutes in order to escape with the diamond. Another really fun one was called um, Gold Rush, where you're gold miners during the gold rush, where you are trying to find some gold nuggets that people have left behind, and you got to go retrieve them before the bandits come in and take them. And with all these various missions, there's different types of puzzles. It's more than just figuring out like different codes and like keys. It's it makes you use your brain a little bit more. There was one particular puzzle that was really fun. Um, the theme for this particular escape room was called Special Ops, like you were like secret spies in a way. So kind of like a Mission Impossible escape room. And with one of the puzzles, you had to actually figure out um, the spices, different types of spices. There was cumin, cinnamon, thyme, and different types of spices. But for me, I didn't really have a good sense of smell of what these spices were. But thankfully, I had my mom with us for this particular escape room where she knows these spices very well. She was able to figure out what those spices were, and we had to put them in a particular order, which then on the bottom of these different spice tins, they had a code, which then we were able to punch in that code in the keypad, which unlocked the next puzzle. See, with all these different escape rooms, the different games, the puzzles that are a part of this activity, not all of the keys lead to the escape. There's only one key that allows you to escape. And today we're going to be talking about how we have the one key that leads us to salvation. So today we're going to be continuing in our shepherd series, taking a look at Jesus when he said, I am the good shepherd. Now, this message might seem a bit familiar. Maybe you probably remember this message all the way back in like January and February, where we took a look at the I Am series, where Jesus he said the seven I am statements in the book of John. Today we're going to be taking a look at two of them, where Jesus said, "I am the gate," and "I am the good shepherd." And if you do remember this, awesome, that's great. But if you don't, maybe this just be like a fun little review and time to reflect on this whole year as a whole, with our theme of answering the question, "Who is Jesus?" And looking at that theme this whole year, maybe we would just reflect on everything that we've gone through, and with us at the end of the year, kind of starting to complete that theme. And so again, we're looking at the I am statements of Jesus. I am the gate, and I am the good shepherd. This is in John chapter 10. But before we get into John chapter 10, just a little bit of context of where we're at right now. So in John chapter 9, we see Jesus, he actually heals a blind man. And He heals a man. He was blind his entire life. And then we see Jesus. He's talking with this blind man. And Jesus is talking about the Messiah, talking to this man. And Jesus is informing this man that he is the Messiah, that he is the promised one. And the man who once was blind, he said, Lord, I believe. That he believed that Jesus is the Messiah. But then after that conversation, there were some Pharisees who heard Jesus talking about this, and he knew that some people were blind but could see, but yet there were people who could see but were still blind. And these Pharisees were thinking, well, we're great leaders, we're the good spiritual leaders, we know more about the law. And so they looked at Jesus and say, like, you're not saying that we're blind. Obviously, we can see. These Pharisees believed that they were the ones who actually could see, but in reality, they were the ones who were truly blind. In fact, Jesus told them that since they made the claim that they could already see, then their guilt of sin remains. Because they believed that since they were following the law so well that they were the ones who could see, but in reality they were still guilty of their sin. So that's a little bit of context in chapter 9. So now let's get into John chapter 10, the main text for today. So we're looking at John chapter 10, starting in verse 1, we see the authority of the shepherd. We see the authority of the shepherd. So starting in verse 1, it says, I tell you the truth. The man who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs some other way, is a thief and robber. The man who enters by the gate is the shepherd of his sheep. The watchman opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but they did not understand what he was telling them. So we see this imagery of a shepherd. This imagery of the shepherd here is one that is used throughout Scripture. We've talked about before some famous shepherds such as Abraham, Isaac, Jacob's sons, Moses, King David himself. They were all famous shepherds throughout Israel's history. So the idea of a shepherd is not brand new. This imagery is not brand new to the people of Israel. And so when Jesus is talking about here how a thief, how he is the one who climbs into sheep pen another way, where he doesn't enter into the gate, but he climbs over the wall, like he climbs in another way. He's the thief. Like that's what a thief does. He doesn't go through the gate. You see, today we might see a thief try to break into someone's house, right? Try to break in through maybe a window or maybe through the garage door, but not through the front door or the back door because there's a lot of security in those areas. Or a thief tries to go through a different area, a place where there's the least amount of security. Same thing applies here. A thief tries to go through the sheep gate, the sheep pen in some other way, climbs over the little wall protecting the sheep that are caring for the sheep there, because if the thief, okay, where was I? Oh yes, So looking at this sheep pen where a thief he climbs over the side into the sheep pen to try to steal the sheep. See, the watchman opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. See, the watchman, we see this is the shepherd. Um, see, the shepherd, he's the one who actually cares for the sheep. See, the shepherd doesn't go over the side of the little sheep pen. He actually opens the gate. In fact, there are times where the shepherd himself, he's the one who actually sits at the entrance as the gate to watch over the sheep particularly at night. But you see, the sheep, as we've talked about how pretty stupid the sheep are. They're not exactly the brightest sheep, but they do know the difference between their shepherd and a stranger. See, they know the shepherd because the shepherd calls them by name. And so then when they hear the shepherd's voice, they go to them, they follow him. But when they hear the stranger's voice, they scatter. They do not recognize the voice. So they freak out, they panic, and they run away, not sure what all to do. They don't follow the stranger, they follow their shepherd, the one that they actually know. And see, with the stranger, he might be trying to run behind the sheep, trying to snatch them, trying to steal them. Whereas the shepherd, when he opens the gate, brings all the sheep out, he then goes in front of the herd and leads them to where they are needing to go. See, the sheep trust the shepherd. See, there's a difference in type of leadership when it comes to a shepherd. A big difference is kind of like there's a shepherd leadership and there's also a cowboy leadership. See, with the cowboy leadership, has the cowboy has to be the one who pushes the sheep, pushes the cows, tries to get them going. In fact, they use this thing called a cattle prod to try to get them moving in a particular direction. But for a shepherd, he doesn't need anything special. He just needs his voice. They take this line too literal. See, they see Jesus, he's saying like I am the gate, so they take it as, oh, so Jesus is saying he's an actual door with a knob and hinges, but that's not the case. He's not an actual door, but he's saying he offers entrance, that he is the one that gives access. In fact, he gives freedom. He opens the door. He's the gate. He's the one who opens up and allows the sheep to go find pasture, to go find food. And Jesus in here, he even says, all who ever came before me were thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. See, during this time, there were several other people who claimed to be the Messiah, who said that they were the good shepherd, but they did not give good testimony. They gave false testimony. And Jesus even said with this that all of them came before me, but the sheep did not listen to them, because they understood that false shepherd was not a good shepherd. Jesus said then, again in John chapter 10, verse 9, I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. He will come in and go out and find pasture. So we see Jesus is saying that with him being the gate, all those who enter through him will be saved. Not through another door, not through over the wall like the thieves, but only through Jesus. That is only through Jesus Christ that we may be saved. And it's not just this good feeling that we might get for going to Jesus. It's what Jesus leads us to. As we looked at Psalm 23 a couple of weeks ago, it said that he leads us by still waters, by green. He makes us lie down by green pastures. See, we talked about how there's that spiritual nourishment. That's what Jesus leads us to as the gate. He opens up, he gives us access to that spiritual nourishment that we need. And it's only through Jesus that we may be able to have that nourishment, that spiritual food that we need. And then we get into our next point where Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. This is verses 11 through 18. So still in John chapter 10, where we see Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. So starting in verse 11, he says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away, and because he is a hired hand, he cares nothing for the sheep. Verse 14, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, I know the Father, and I lay down my voice for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and the authority to take it back up. This command I received from my Father. So again, we see Jesus, he's saying that I am the good shepherd. And twice he makes the claim that, four times he says, I lay down my life for the flock. See, the responsibility for a shepherd is more than just providing food and water and just keeping them all together. It's protecting them. We talked about throughout the series that for a shepherd, it's not exactly a simple job. Shepherds were known as these tough guys, the guys who are not easily frightened of anything. They were the first responders during the first century. Because if there were wolves, lions, or bears, or some type of predator, who sees the sheep and wants to turn them into their next meal. The shepherd is the one who goes towards those animals, who goes towards the predators and protects the sheep. And Jesus here, he's saying he's laying down his life for his flock. But his flock is not physical sheep. This is talking about people, the spiritual sheep, that we are like lambs and he is our shepherd. He's saying he's able to lay down his life for us, lay down his life for his flock. But not just lay it down. He's not doing this because he has to. We see this here that he says in verse 18, I lay it down on my own accord. See, this is not something that he's forced to do. Jesus understands what he's meant to do, and he's willing to do it. He's willing to die for us. In fact, he did die for us. He laid down his life for his flock. But then we also see that he has the authority to lay it down and the authority to take it up again. That's at verse 18. The authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. Jesus is talking about his resurrection. Not just his death, his resurrection. I know there are some pastors out there that only really like to talk about just the death of Jesus. And that's it. Not anything else, just the death of Jesus, which I do believe that's important. But then they forget to talk about the resurrection part, where Jesus rose from the dead. And Jesus has the authority to take it back up again. He laid down his life and took it back up. But on top of this, he doesn't just want people to just believe whatever they want. Jesus is looking to have one flock, for there to be one shepherd and one flock. We see this a little bit before he makes the claim in verse 18, but we see that, excuse me, he wants there to be one sheep or one flock and one shepherd at the end of verse 16. So in all of verse 16, it says, I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. You see, during this time, the Pharisees believed that you must be Jewish, that you must be true Jewish to have the full blessing of God. But here Jesus is saying that there's some sheep that are not of his sheep pen, and he must go get them. Talking about the Gentiles. Going to get those sheep to bring them into his sheep pen, being part of his flock. For there to be only one flock with one shepherd. There are some people who might say that all roads lead to the same place, that it doesn't matter what you believe, as long as you are a good person, then we'll all go to the same place. Friends, when we look here in Scripture, we see that's not the case. It's not about whatever we believe gets us to the same place. It's about following one shepherd, the good shepherd. For us all to be a part of the same flock, to follow the same shepherd. And at the end of this section here, starting in verse 19, we see confusion with the Jews. So again, starting in verse 19, there's confusion with the Jews. It says, at these words, the Jews were again divided. Many of them said, he is demon-possessed. and raving mad. Why listen to him? Verse 21. But others said, these are not the sayings of a man possessed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? So we see people are saying that Jesus is demon possessed. In fact, throughout the book of John, we see people saying that Jesus is a demon, that he is demon possessed. But we also see he mentions to the people that they have their father, their father is the devil. And so they're trying to turn around on Jesus, saying that Jesus is the one who's demon possessed. That this man is crazy. He's a lunatic. But the thing is, they understood of what Jesus was saying here, that he is claiming to be God, that he's actually claiming to be God. So maybe some of these people thought that this is another false Messiah. He's crazy. He's acting weird. Like, we can't trust him. He's demon possessed. But then we also see how some people were saying, can a demon possessed man open the eyes of the blind? Which we talked about before in John chapter 9. Jesus opened the eyes of a blind man. So, how can a man who's demon possessed open the eyes of the blind? And friends, people today are still divided over if Jesus was either a madman or the Messiah. People are still divided on that. The thing is, some people don't fully understand that Jesus actually did claim to be God. People want to say, well, if Jesus did not say, I am God, then he never claimed to be God. But we have to understand it from the first century context. Did Jesus ever claim to be God? And he did, more than once. When we understand the context here, Jesus is claiming to be God. He himself is claiming to be the good shepherd. And we saw King David in Psalm 23. We saw this a couple of weeks ago. How does that famous psalm start with? So again, Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. So either Jesus was crazy or he was telling the truth. But friends, when we understand the evidence, the context, we can see that Jesus is telling the truth, that he is the good shepherd. So as we get to our application here today, we see that Jesus is the gate that offers salvation. Friends, there's only one gate that offers salvation. People believe today that there's more than one way to salvation, that they don't even need Jesus. In fact, they don't even need religion. They don't need anything that can just get through life on their own. But the thing is, we need Jesus. Jesus is the one and only way. He is the gate that leads us to green pastures, to still waters. Jesus is the gate that offers salvation. Just like with that escape room, there's only one key that allows us to escape the room. Jesus is that one gate. Second thing is we have the same message, but different illustrations. See, throughout the Old Testament, throughout the Gospels, we see Jesus using different illustrations, particularly like with these I am statements. I don't know if you remember all of them from earlier this year. There were 7 of them. We saw Jesus saying, I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. And here we saw, I am the gate. I am the good shepherd. Jesus even said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I'm the resurrection and the life. I'm the true vine. There are different illustrations that Jesus used, but it's all speaking the same message that he is God. That he is the one that has come to save us. So as we take a look at scripture, we might think that Jesus is saying something different, something confusing, but he's saying that he is God. Just a different way of saying it, different illustration, but he's saying he is God. And then finally, Jesus is our shepherd who provides for us. Jesus is our shepherd who provides for us. See, the shepherd, he's not only this guy who just comes out and gives the sheep food and water. He knows the sheep by name. He knows which ones are old and young. He knows exactly what each sheep needs. Jesus wants to take care of his flock. We are called by name from him because he knows our names. He knows exactly what we need. He is the one who provides us with food, with nourishment. See, during Christmas, we might get gifts that we might not necessarily want, or they might not be the most exciting gift. In fact, I have a friend where a couple of weeks ago, he says, you know what, for Christmas, I kind of just want some new work boots. Yeah, that sounds exciting, doesn't it? Just wants new work boots. There are times when we get Christmas gifts where we might not exactly get what we really want. See, instead of getting a new toy, we get a new pair of pants. Instead of getting some stylish shoes, we get work boots. Instead of a copy of a brand new movie that we really like, we get toothpaste. And I know those might sound boring, not as exciting. But aren't those things something that we all need? We need toothpaste. We might need new work boots. Maybe we need a new pair of pants. Might not be what we want, but it is what we need. And that's what Jesus provides for us. It might not be what we want, but it is what we need. And when we have what we need, it makes life a little less stressful. Because with maybe a new pair of pants, you can finally get rid of those old pair of pants that have like 10 different holes in them. The old work boots that are worn out, that no longer have good grip, are now replaced with brand new work boots they're warm, they've got amazing grip. And who knows, maybe you ran out of toothpaste and you got a brand new tube of toothpaste. It creates life a little less stressful. And so with this season, let's not focus on the gifts that we want. Let's focus on the gift that we all need, Jesus Christ. Let us pray.